Hello everyone and welcome to DownUnderSteer. My name is Franky. Coming up in a few days we've got the first race of the 2012 season, Melbourne Grand Prix. Very exciting time for F1 fans everywhere.
Yep, so excited. That's all I can think about at the moment. I'm hanging out for qualifying especially. That'll give it the first time that will give us an indication of where everyone is at. And it'll put all the speculation over the last few months to bed.
There has been a lot of talk going around, as usual, between races or before a new season. A lot of the top teams and even the team principals have been noting that the performance gap of the top teams does not seem to be very large. There's no definite front runner out there from what they're saying.
You would always expect the team on top, who I think still is Red Bull, to play down their chances. But I think it is unusual that McLaren appear to be playing up their chances, don't they?
Autosport have mentioned that from Whitmarsh says that no single team appears to be set to dominate in Australia. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think I do. I think that McLaren and Red Bull should be fairly evenly matched. I think what's also interesting to do with that battle, and in fact the battle's all the way down the grid, is the weather forecast for the weekend. Morning rain on Friday and again on Sunday, and maximum temperatures throughout the weekend of only 22. Albert Park is always a pretty green track because normally it's just a regular road. And so these showers may wash off any rubber that gets laid down. So it could be a hairy start on Sunday afternoon.
Obviously, we're starting our new season here, so why don't we have a talk about a bit of the history from the Melbourne Grand Prix?
Yes, dating back to 1996 was the first Grand Prix that was hosted in Melbourne. Obviously, before that was Adelaide. And the 1996 season also saw the debut of Jacques Villeneuve in a Williams Renault after coming over from Champ Cars, and got a pole position on debut and came desperately close to winning the race as well. It was only an oil leak over the last few laps that slowed him and allowed his teammate Damon Hill to get past.
Also the race where Martin Brundle decided to quit Formula One and take up flying airplanes.
Indeed it was. That's right, and his Jordan broke his Jordan in half. Massive crash.
Going on from there, in 97, Villeneuve put the Williams Renault on pole by 1.75 seconds, even though the top 7 cars were only separated by 3 seconds. By contrast to that, the top 17 cars were covered by 3 seconds last year, so you can see the field has compacted since those times.
Yeah, I mean, that was a qualifying held in the dry. So for Villeneuve to score pole over his teammate, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, by 1 3/4 seconds is just astounding. You don't see time differences like that in qualifying at all now.
No. So a marshal was killed after being struck by a tyre which came off Villeneuve's car after a crash in the 2001 race. The tyre actually made its way through a letterbox-shaped gap, which the marshals used to enter and exit the track, and that the tyre ended up going through that gap and obviously collecting the poor marshal on the way through.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first of 2 marshals to die in that season. Obviously, a marshal was killed at the Italian Grand Prix later in the season, and that directly led to the instigation of the wheel tether rule, which started in 2002.
2001 also being the debut race for Alonso, Raikkonen and Montoya.
Yeah, the class of 2001, it was a beauty. I mean, Melbourne's has traditionally been the season opener, so it's always been a race of pretty high attrition. 2008, only 7 of the 22 cars finished, the year that Lewis Hamilton won, which was also the same for 1997 when Villeneuve put it on pole by 1 3/4 seconds.
A few years back, 2009, Brawn debuted and won. Was it a 1-2?
It was indeed.
So Button winning the championship that year. Out of 12 races, how many times have the winner of the Melbourne Grand Prix gone on to win that championship?
9 of those times. The only time it hasn't happened was in 2003 when Coulthard won, 2010 when Button won for McLaren, and in 2005 when Fisichella won. But every other time, the winner of the Melbourne Grand Prix has gone on to win the championship. Since 2000 at any rate.
I guess while we're talking history, we should talk about last year's race. Vettel puts it on pole and goes on to win the race.
Yeah, it was a pretty dominant performance by Vettel, and it kind of set a precedent for the rest of the season, unfortunately. Out of interest, Frankie, who do you think is most likely to score a podium out of Ferrari, Lotus and Mercedes going into Melbourne?
In this race?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting one. Lotus were talking up their chances around Melbourne, so
Yeah, they were.
I'll put my money on Lotus for a podium at Melbourne.
Oh, okay. Interesting, which is what they managed to do as Renault last year as well. I think Mercedes have probably got the best chance at the moment. I'm not at all sure how the Ferrari is going to handle things.
I think Ferrari, they struggled at the start of last season, and it looks like they're set to struggle at the start of this season again.
Yeah, the last few seasons, Ferrari, it's just been catch-up, hasn't it?
Having said that, though, lap record around Melbourne still held by a Ferrari.
Yes.
Michael Schumacher from 2004 got a 124.125.
Obviously, that was in the F2004, which is one of the dominant cars of the last 30 years that we talked about in the last show.
So comparatively, the fastest lap last year by Sebastian Vettel, 129.30. Way off.
Yeah, that is way off. 2004, that fastest race lap time was set when refueling was still in as well. So, and tyre changes. So it was short fuel blasts the whole race.
That's true. So you'd have to suggest that many of the lap records which stood from that era are going to remain.
Yeah, they could for a while. I mean, a 129 compared to a 124, that's 5 second difference.
So to wrap it up there, Jem, who is your pick for the pole and race win?
Sebastian Vettel on pole, Jenson Button for the win.
All right, and I'll stick with Hamilton on pole and Vettel for the win. And we'll keep a tally of these throughout the season and between myself and Jem, and then one of us shall be declared the winner.
It'll be me.
No, it'll be me. So until next week, guys, we will do a post-race show after Melbourne, and then we'll be heading off to Malaysia for the next race. As always, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed the content here today. If you didn't, tell us why you didn't. Make sure you check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time.